Hey there, everybody. Hope you're doing well today. It's about noon on, I guess it's the 14th of January 2021. I don't know why I always have to put out the date, but it's good to know, I guess. And where my mind's at a certain time, even though I could just look down at the description. I wanted to talk about the limits of self-improvement and limits of knowledge, and do it in a way that's pretty brief and to the point. And it probably won't be. So I've made probably 4,000 or more videos over my 10 years on YouTube. And it's really helped me to process some of my ideas through the lens of others. And the limits of self-improvement, and the reason why I guess I started with that comment or that line is there are certain things that we can only really acknowledge once we've bounced these ideas off of other people in society. We can isolate with our own ideas or find small groups that agree with us and believe that we're righteous and that others are wrong. But I think that deep down in the human heart, we all, most of us, okay, not all of us. I mean, people believe some crazy things, but most of us believe that a majority of humans are relatively good-natured and good-intentioned and mean well. Therefore, when we get negative feedback over an idea we have or something that we want to share with people, we can take it very personal because we feel like we've been somehow wronged by other people because they don't agree or like what we've done or what we've said. But there's two ways to go about this. We either A, decide that all the rest of the people are wrong and we know what we're talking about and isolate from those people. Or B, we start considering the things that we think are true. And over my lifetime, I have had many ideas that turned out to be not necessarily wrong, but perhaps I was a little too excited about something because it sounded right to me at the time. So what I wanted to talk about is some of the basic, really down-to-earth, straight-up things that I feel we need to do in our lives in order to lead a happier life. And one of those is letting go of petty shit. Letting go of the petty things in our lives that we know that we shouldn't be concerned about, but we can't help. In today's world, it's so much worse than it was in the past when it comes to consumption of media. When I was a kid, parents would wake up in the morning, grab a newspaper, drink their coffee, or, read the newspaper, drink their coffee, close it, you're done for the day. You've got the news that you're going to get. And generally, you didn't miss anything that was imperative. Today, everyone is on their phones and their computers every 5 minutes or more, trying to figure out exactly what happened in the last 5 minutes. In a fast-changing society, then that's something you would expect. But we've become addicted to our devices. We've become addicted to information. And I'm not going to go on any further onto that issue because that's a completely different can of worms. But I think that everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. The idea we have to take digital breaks or media breaks in itself should tell you something. Now, about 10 years ago, I decided to get rid of my cable. I mean, it was something that there was no way I couldn't do it. I was surprised I hadn't done it sooner. I can't stand ads. I hate political ads, especially during the season. So I haven't seen anything like that. Thank God we're not immersed in certain types of advertising and bullshit anymore. But the internet has given us this whole new window into the world, allowing us to want free content and willing to give up our personal data for that. That's changing. That's another subject altogether. But so I think that working on the self is a very important part of becoming a well-rounded human being and being respected by ourselves and others. But it does have limits. And how much we relate to others, I believe, is a strong gauge into how well balanced we are in our knowledge. But let me stop short of saying that it doesn't mean that if you follow the masses, you know what you're talking about. This is something that I've tried to figure out in the past, how to kind of express this idea without seeming like you're just a sheep. Just because a lot of people believe one thing, or the media is saying one thing, does not necessarily mean that that thing is not true. But a lot of people, if they hear something they don't want to hear, it becomes either fake news or a lie, and we get stuck in a situation where people basically have selective bias about how they perceive world events or what world events are even really happening. But generally, if you see something on the news, the thing probably happened. You know, they talk about a bombing in Nigeria or Afghanistan or in Tennessee the other day. I mean, it's not just the media, it's the thousands of photos and videos that people send in. Everyone is completely connected now, which means that you can't really say things that didn't happen. If it's pretty obvious, you can look them up and see. But anyhow, what I'm saying by bringing that up is that don't think that we are more intelligent by ignoring basic science and facts and information just because we've heard a story about how this might be a lie or many scientists are biased and work for companies. All this is true. But I guess the question here also would be, what knowledge is worth knowing? And I think that comes down to really which knowledge protects us as individuals, not just physically, but mentally. So this is an important thing that I've discovered in my years of information and knowledge. It's funny because I've mentioned this book so many times on my channel, and my wife pointed it out yesterday, because I'm doing an interview for a podcast tonight at 6 p.m. It probably won't be uploaded for a while from them, but it's called 13 Questions, and they asked me to be on their podcast by the recommendation of one of my subscribers, I believe. And one of the questions is, what book was most influential in your life? And I told my wife, I was like, weird, never really thought about that. I don't really have one. And she goes, oh, wouldn't it be Behold a Pale Horse? Now that's a book by William Cooper, or Bill Cooper, that was written back in the 90s. Basically, he was an ex-CIA guy who had, supposedly, I don't remember all the details of his credentials. I think he was ex-Navy, but he supposedly revealed all these secrets of the government in this book, and it talked about everything from MK Ultra and actual issues our government had, things our government had really done that are on paper, and things like making deals with aliens and selling our technology or getting technology from aliens to give them humans, or there was some weird stuff in there. But the point being is, at that time in my life, that was knowledge that was new to me, that our government had all these programs and had lied to us for so long. And that set me off on a 10-year tangent of trying to understand how the New World Order operates. The Rothschilds, the banks, the Bilderbergers, the Trilateral Commission. I mean, it slightly overlaps with my YouTube channel, just slightly. So for 10 to 12 years I was into that, and then right when I started my YouTube channel was right at the tail end of that, when I started to realize that most of it is bullshit. Because I'd already been looking at these things for 10 years before the internet came around, to where I could really look at the details and say, wait a minute, I've been hoodwinked. Somebody was trying to sell me a book, now somebody's trying to sell me a website. And this was the beginning of the age of distrust and disinformation. Not a new thing, but a new age of it and a new form of it. Deceit. And so along those lines, I wanted to say that being deceitful is something that harms us personally and as a society. So, as an individual, if you avoid deceiving people, you will likely be a happier person. So, I'm going to go over some of the things before I go that I think are the most crucial aspects of what do make you, that are self-improvement techniques, things that we really should look at. And it's just a basic short list of ideas. And to be a Renaissance man or woman, that's the key here. Renaissance man just means that you're a person who is out there trying to understand as much as you can about the world, and that you know many different things. It's somewhat like a jack of all trades, but terminology is limited. It's all just semantics, right? First one is to know the self. And the first one is the most difficult. and one that could be broken down into probably 50 subcategories. But knowing the self means being honest with the self, I think. Looking at who we are and seeing what things we want to do or what things we want to change. Anything that we want to improve, we can't shun away and hide from. And so knowing the self is the first step to knowing others. Number 2 is accept changes. And I think that right now in society, this is probably one of the ones that is holding us back the most. This has nothing to do with the modern day because it's always been this way. Things are always changing. When the first trains came around, some people panicked. When the first televisions came around, people thought that, it was going to consume our lives. They weren't too far off. And then we had people who were afraid that radio waves were going to kill us all because they were these invisible energy waves. Same thing that's happening now with other technologies like 5G, which may or may not be harmful, and that one's still up in the air. However, accepting changes means that you're looking at what's going on in the world and you're able to say, look, I can't get rid of this or stop this, so I have to understand it. Accepting changes doesn't mean that you're okay with everything that's going on, but rather that you accept that that's the way it is, instead of getting mad about it. Number 3, and this one is more difficult to explain, don't be afraid to fall back on the good old times or what worked. If you spend some time, whether it be days, weeks, or even years, looking into one type of religion or political belief or idea that you thought was working, and then something in your heart says, this just doesn't make sense to me anymore. Be honest and be willing to fall back on old ideas. Like, for example, I've gone through some Hinduism and Buddhism, some certain practices that I found useful. Then I moved into some other ideas and kind of left that behind, and now I'm, kind of moving back to thinking, okay, I've got to really re-study these principles because they made me the happiest in my life. Knowing when the parts of your life were working right is crucial, but also accepting change means you're going to get old, okay? We have to understand entropy. We have to understand that we will all die, and I hate to put it that bluntly, but it's a beautiful thing. Coming to the realization that everything has an end means we can live fully in the moment as much as possible. So going back to your old ideas can sometimes benefit you. Number 4 is to realize, as painful as this is to say, politics do matter. I was never interested in politics. Let me put it this way. When my wife and I got together back in 98, and we moved in together around 99 or so, George Bush was president, and I remember one night we were watching something on the news about it, and I said, she's like, said something about his dad, and I said, that's George Bush's son, huh? I didn't even realize that, that was his son. She laughed at me. I'll never forget it. And I thought about that. I was like, well, now that you think about it, of course it's obvious. George Bush. But I was that disinterested in politics. But if you fast forward a few years, I was making T-shirts with George Bush's face on a dollar bill, with this look on his face and talking about stop the destruction and murder of innocent civilians, and I was all of a sudden political and interested, in my mid-20s, right? And I thought, this is kind of funny, why do I care? Well, I cared. I said enough of the Bush it, like bullshit, and I was like, oh God. I found the T-shirt a while back, and I thought, oh God. But I was passionate because I watched the bombings, the shock and awe campaign as it was unfolding. And I was so appalled by what I saw and how many civilians were killed that I felt I had to speak up. And that was kind of the beginning of my interest in politics. But I'm not going to get into that. I want to say, in a nutshell, politics are important because we're all affected by the policies that are enacted by those that we hire to represent us. Our tax dollars, whether you like it or not, when you drive, when you pay taxes, all this money goes to these funds and these politicians who, if they're not working on for the benefit of the people, you just do need to speak out. And so politics matter in a certain way and in a certain proportion. but you don't have to get so immersed in it that you take a side. And I think that's something we have to remember. Don't take a side unless that side is absolutely right. It's okay to be critical of your political party or group or belief system, at least in part. And it seems like we have an absolutist society right now. I hear the recycling guy out there clinking bottles. We have an absolutist society out there where it's like we have to be all in or we're just completely kicked out of our group, which is why groups are a huge problem. I believe that it was Groucho Marx who said something to the effect of, I would not join any group that would have me as a member. I'm going to let the recycling guy do his thing. And no, I don't edit it out of my videos, obviously, because I never have the time to sit and cut out one portion of a guy making noise. That brings me to another point that I hadn't pointed out. I'll put in a fifth one between the other ones, which is to be patient. Be patient and learn to not get upset or bothered about little things. So number 7 is respect other people's opinions. I think it's one of the most crucial things that we forget to do. We instantly are ready to lash out. We find out we're arguing with somebody from a different party or a different religion, and all of a sudden we're ready to just lash out at them for being wrong, rather than really listening. And I know this is true for all people, or at least most people, because I do it too. I try not to. I make every best effort to read the whole comment if somebody leaves and really respond with something that I think makes sense. But it's hard, and sometimes you get sick of just bullshit. You hear something that just makes no sense and it's just ridiculous to you. But you have to remember that other people have researched things in their own way. Really, it comes down to how you express those things to other people. I think that's the most important. Now, along the same lines, in that same 6th one, I guess, where are we at? Is that 6th? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I threw in a 5th. Yeah, the 6th. Respect others, but also speak your truth, which means that's crucial. You have to respect other people if you want them to respect you. However, you don't have to agree with them. You have to speak what you believe to be the truth. And sometimes you might not get that mutual respect. I've had people say things that I said, well, I respect that you think that, but this is what I believe, and then have them say, you're just a moron, or whatever it might be. Don't buy into it. It's not worth the time. Number 8 is to accept what is. 8. Accept what is, and that's self-explanatory. I don't even need to go into depth. We can want change, we can move for change and try to make things better for ourselves, but you have to accept the way things are and not be in denial. Number 9, one of the most crucial ones, be grateful. Be grateful every day for what you have. Even when the times are really bad, even when I'm at my sickest, or I wake up feeling kind of confused or depressed or I'm stressed out, I think I'm grateful to be alive, and that always helps me out. I'm grateful to exist right now. I'm grateful to not have a headache or a hangover. I'm grateful to not be dying or be lost or stranded somewhere or be in a war. Yeah. And finally, number 10, and perhaps one of the most obvious, is tell the truth. And I don't just mean, be honest with people like your family and friends. I mean be honest with everyone. Be honest with yourself especially. And if you're honest with yourself, then you'll be honest with everyone else. Being honest with your business dealings. It's easy to just talk up a product and pretend it does something it doesn't. It's easy to claim that something has, reviews that it doesn't. Even the smallest little things that we do to lie only serve to damage the whole of our society. And when we do it, we know deep down inside we're doing it. And the people who do lie and cheat for business tactics or for personal gain, they will do anything to justify it. If you confront those people on these things, and if somebody out there is one of those people who maybe lies for their business, I can't do it personally. If you can, so be it. But I think that there's a certain bit of honesty that's ingrained within all of us. So though you and I may not agree on all opinions, political or religious or otherwise, at least I'm honest. And I think that that's what I really expect out of other people as well. Just an honest approach. your own honesty, how you truly feel, not just some front or a game. So that's really all I've got. This is not a self-help book by any means or a list to live by, but in my opinion, I think that these things are vastly beneficial. And I think we can all benefit from researching each other's information. So I will talk to you all next time. Thank you to my supporters. Thanks to my patrons on Patreon. I really appreciate you all. And my new patron, darn it, I didn't write down your name, but bless your soul. And then as well, I have a Discord server where I've been sharing a lot of thoughts on, and there's also a 15-minute free thinking podcast I do like weekly, or I try to. And then there's a Discord group on there for that podcast. That's what my server is for there. So it's a place to post and communicate, and I found it pretty useful. I like it. And so anyway, thanks for listening. Please leave your input and your thoughts, and I will talk to you all next time. Peace out.